Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, positively getting the Maryland Crab Cake Tour back out on the road this week. We had so much fun at Coco's last week and Costas the week before that, Fadley's before that. We're going to be at Pizza John's on Friday, which means French fries and gravy for me. Also means a Hawaiian pizza with proper pepperoni on there. I will have the Maryland Treasures treasure collection, all four of these to give away at Pizza John's. We're also going to be at the Planet Fitness next week on the 7th. We're going to be at Fadley's downtown on the 13th, and then out at the Fishmonger's Daughter on the 21st. Also brought to you by GBMC and Farnan and Dermer. They are the comfort guys. And no one is comfortable with Oriole baseball right now. Not the rotation, not the way they're hitting the ball, and certainly not the way they're throwing the ball around. The Houston Astros are next up on the dance card, and it gives me a chance to sort of check in with some of my Houston Mafia. I got to catch up with John McClain, and I'm like, I wonder how Matt Thomas is doing. I mean, the Rockets in peril right now, Texans drafting. You've done sports radio there at 790 for a million years, but are certainly on Rockets duty. But the Astros used to be like a big deal in Houston. Is it teetering a little bit right now, Matt?
Well, we were all trying to figure out when the downturn was going to happen, and it obviously didn't happen. It happened a little bit last year. They were tied for the last wild card spot and did not make it because they lost the season series to Detroit. But before that, it was one playoff appearance after the other. It was a dynamic baseball town. It's still a really good baseball town. You just can't take one subpar start and all of a sudden ruin it. But the reality is, this team has been beset by injuries. It's had a terrible run in terms of acquisitions. Some of the key stars on the team are hurt, and they're underperforming right now. There's no question about it. So this is going back for the first time probably since 2014, since the city of Houston has not had watched a competitive baseball team so far.
Are you a critic of them not spending money, big money on players? Because we're at that. Listen, there's going to be a strike next year, a lockout, labor, all of that. We have new ownership here. They spent all this money in Alonso. They went in on Basayo. They're in on Shane Baz. They've
Right.
signed the guys they can sign. Gunnar Henderson might not be signable. Correa, some of those guys might not have been signable. Altuve's still there, right? But some of the pitchers they didn't get in on in Houston, or ways that you could look back, and maybe the folks in Kansas City could say the same thing and say, what if this, had we done that or not done that? We had Chris Davis here, right? So I would just say you've held it together longer than other little empires in other places that haven't spent $300 million a year have.
Well, the reality is the Astros are not cheap. They're just not going to go to the mega deals. They're not going to give Kyle Tucker 8 years. They're not going to give Carlos Correa many years ago 10 years. They're not going to give Garrett Cole the crazy money that he wanted to go to the Yankees. Bregman, I could go on and on and on. And
Sure.
every Monday on my show at 1:30, I do a segment called Missing Ya, where we talk about five players that are no longer with the Astros. Nobody's really crushing it. Framber Valdez is pretty good with Detroit. Uh, Bregman's been just okay in Chicago. Kyle Tucker's been just okay in Los Angeles. I don't even count Jesus Sanchez with the Toronto Blue Jays. It was just but no, he being Jim Crane, the owner, spends 4 or 5 year deals, paying some fair market value, but he ain't going six. He sure as hell ain't going seven, and don't even bring up 8 or 9. And that's the reality that
Well,
I
none of
think a
those
lot of
deals are any
people.
good in the end anyway, right?
Yeah, but it's hard to continue to see players leave left and right because of that. They did pay Josh Hader a couple of years ago, big time money to be the closer. They have brought back Justin Verlander not once but twice. I think they would like to keep Hunter Brown, their number one starter, on a long-term deal. But long again, what Hunter wants and Scott Boras, his agent, want is different than what Jim Crane's willing to pay. Now, they did get Tatsui Imai, a Japanese player that was a Scott Boras client, signed him to a 3 year deal with two options. So they're not going to try to get into a bidding war. So I think some fans get bent about that. But the reality is, when I do my Missing You segment every Monday, there ain't anybody going, "Oh my God, would this team be so much better if those five guys were on the baseball team?"
Well, we had Machado here, right? So things would have been a little different around here. But I mean, our ownership was such garbage forever. These new guys are in. They don't really know what they're doing. I mean, they really don't. The stadium's still empty. The woman running the team doesn't have any, they got no feel for any of this. And they're betting on the All-Star game. But I think the fan base was betting on Elias. And Joe Espada came, he was next up when they hired Brandon Hyde. Now, Hyde's been fired a year. They've got
Right.
Albarnez here from that vote Cleveland, Tampa tree to some degree. But I'm looking around. We are your tree, right? We are the Houston tree and the Elias and Sigma and all of that. Do you still sense that the Orioles are the little Astro World engine that could, that didn't, that hasn't? Because we're getting to the point where under 500, things aren't going well right now in a lot of ways for the franchise, including getting Holiday on the field and 1-1, Rutschman, all of this, injuries, big problem here. But if it fails, this might be the end of Astro World for the Orioles, that the experiment here maybe didn't work the same way it did in Houston.
I hate to tell you this. We don't spend a lot of time looking at the Baltimore Orioles organization. Although Mike Elias was part of the Jeff Luhnow tree. That's not an Astro tree. That's a Jeff Luhnow tree. Sigma Chi was a Luhnow guy. So with Jeff being gone for as long as he has, because he was fired because of the cheating scandal, there isn't much communication. There isn't a lot of buzz about where are the Luhnow disciples. I liked Mike Elias a lot. I wouldn't say we were friends, but I would see him 4 or 5 times a year in the clubhouse or in the press area, and I thought it was a magnificent hire as long as you build the farm system, which Mike was very good for, and then you spent money reasonable, did not overpay. You had what I thought was a good fan base you could sell. You had your TV network, which at the time was okay, but now all those regional TV networks are going away now. The reality is you got to be really, really smart. You got to be really, really good with your minor league system. And like I said this about the Orioles, like I said this about 20 other teams, you're damn well ain't gonna outspend the Yankees or the Mets or the Dodgers. So if you go to the Astro way, which was what this team did to become a 8 or 9 year success, it's a pretty good system to have. But it's definitely not what I thought it would be, and it certainly has been a different change of things since Jeff Luhnow was unfortunately let go several years ago.
Well, I mean, we were all following the Astro way, the Luno way, until the trash can banging and all of that,
Right.
that I can lean into for shtick, but I won't because it was a while ago. But either way, it does feel like Elias has to be next up as ownership looks at this and says, what's gone wrong? Where are we spending the money? And the whole sport, and Matt, this is probably the weirdest part because you're very associated with the Rockets and have been for a long time, and the NBA where the players sort of run the show in that league.
Right.
I've come from a hockey background where I've talked a lot of hockey and covered it and went through the cold year where they shut the sport down to get control of it. Baseball's going to try to break the union again. And in football, we just had this draft this weekend that turns into this complete QVC flea market for stuff for 3 days. But out of it, there's no fan that says Texans or Ravens or anywhere that says we can't afford this or that team's going to spend more money or we're going to have to lose our best players, even though we lost our center and Tyler Linderbaum. But there's no thought that we were going to lose Lamar Jackson or that if CJ Stroud turns into Tom Brady, that somehow the Texans can't afford that player. Baseball really becomes this arc. We have to speak about it in both of our cities. And you have a huge city and a huge market, a lot of people there, a lot more people that could give money to the Astros and three other sports. But like, I don't know what baseball's plan is. And you and I, being guys that have talked about this a long time, it is very odd in the modern era that we have to talk about always losing our best players and Scott Boras because we're singing the same song, except you had a couple of parades, cheating or not. We have been in the World Series in 43 years here. It's a whole different song when the Ravens are on the other side of the parking lot with Lamar Jackson.
It was so weird. I was watching the Boston Baltimore game. Ironically enough, Alex Cora's last game when the Red Sox destroyed the Orioles, and there's Cal in the crowd. And I mean, I grew up watching Cal, and he's aging, and like all of us age. And he was just sitting back, and I'm thinking, damn, the Orioles have not been relevant since he was patrolling third base. It's been that long. I mean, I know there's maybe a couple other stints in between then, but when I think of the heyday of Orioles baseball, even with the ballpark change, I still think of Cal Ripken. And so what I think about from the outside of the Orioles is you had what, two 100 win seasons, or at least two wild cards, whatever it was, and you bounce out of the playoffs the first time around. That to me was, and Hyde's firing I thought was kind of split second and not thought of very properly. You gotta stay patient with the course, especially if you're not gonna go with the Dodgers do and spend huge money on Kyle Tucker and the Shohei Otanis and say, hey, we'll pay $1 million this year and we'll pay you $80 million in 2056.
What's the temperature in Houston on all of this? I mean, I know the Rockets have been disappointing here this week, and that's near and dear for you.
Right.
Certainly the Texans, and I'm an old Oiler fan, and it's so hideous that they're putting on the Oiler jerseys. It really cheapens the whole thing for me. I'm sure for a lot of people in Houston who call you, it's like that. But the Texans, to me, D'Amico Ryans, I'm buying what they're selling, and they've gone farther than the Ravens have, or further, further, further. My English teacher, Miss Miles, will get on me about that one way or another. But either way, they've been the better franchise lately, and they feel like they're building into something. And if they can protect him a little bit, and if they got some help in the draft over the weekend to do that, the Texans are going to be more trouble than, let's say, the Steelers, Bengals, or Browns are for the Ravens to get to a Super
What
Bowl.
year are we talking about, Bob? What year are we in? Are we in 2026? Because
We
the last
are.
time I checked, all the Texans do is go to the divisional playoffs and lose every single year. This franchise is about to celebrate 25 years of existence, not one AFC championship game. Now, we have stars. Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson are your best ends you'll find maybe in the NFL that aren't talked about. Will Anderson got a big fat paycheck. CJ Stroud's waiting for that check. He got his fifth year option, but he ain't going to get it this year. It's going to be hard for the Texans to put that kind of crazy money behind the quarterback, but as you know, you kind of have to do that unless you want to start from scratch. As far as the Texans landscape is concerned, still a football community. Love it. Every Sunday, it's full of 72,000 people, and the fans have been extraordinarily patient. The ownership has as well. Nick Caserio, the general manager, didn't have to go to the draft to find any one particular position, so it was really best man up, whatever you want, if you want to believe him on that. But it's about CJ. It's about David Montgomery, the offseason move from the trade from the Detroit Lions. It's about finding a complimentary number two opposite Nico Collins. And it's just hoping to maintain this, what I think was Super Bowl caliber defense. The defense was ready to play on Super Sunday. The offense was ready to play in the UFL.
Well, for me with the Ravens, got our coach fired, first time in 18 years. We've got all of that going on. Still don't
Right.
have a center. So we're still talking football, even though we'd love to be talking Oriole baseball. Matt Thomas is here. He's done sports radio down in Houston for a long, long time. Give us a little look at the Astros as the Orioles take them on. And I guess everybody there's in peril too. Espada, man, I mean, if this year turned into that for the Astros, it's on the wrong track for both of these franchises right now, I would say.
Well, the Astros, Joe Espada, the manager, and Dana Brown, the general manager, are on lame duck contracts. So if you go off of past history, the previous general manager, that was Dana Brown, and before that, won the World Series and got let go. So there is not much allegiance. It's win right now and win the right way and the win with the payroll I'm going to give you, or I'll find somebody else that'll do that. Dana Brown was brought here as a quote unquote scout, a talent evaluator, never really negotiated contracts, whether he was with Atlanta or Toronto. First time general manager. So maybe the owner said, "Hey, I'll let you can do your thing, and I want to still get involved." I think Jim is very hands-on. I think he was intimate in the Verlander moving twice. I think he was intimate in Josh Hader. I think he gets involved in contracts, whether that's good or bad. I mean, really, the buck stops with the owner, no matter what team it's with. It depends on how much. But there have been some moves that did not work out well. We signed Jose Abreu to a 3-year contract when we had no general manager. That was a disaster. Signed Rafael Montero to a 3-year contract after having one good season as a middle reliever, and the Astros got buried by that. And the number one thing that probably hurts Dana, two things. One, he was known as a talent evaluator. Let's build the farm system up. Farm system Nestor is probably 27, 28, 29 to 30, depending on Baseball America or ESPN or Baseball Prospectus. And secondly, we added all this depth to the pitching group, and we're talking about Kawhi Tang starting tomorrow and game the series opener against the Orioles. Middle reliever, where been decimated by injuries for the second consecutive year. People were worried about the medical system. They changed the trainers out from last year. It hasn't made any difference. And so, yeah, when you have had 9 or 10 years of superlative, awesome postseason talk baseball to sitting here at the worst record in the American League West, people are kind of jumpy, and I think Jim Crane probably feels that pressure. So lame duck is not a great way to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if both go. I wouldn't be surprised if one stays, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if both stayed. I will say this: if they don't win at least a wild card spot, I would expect wholesale changes both on the field and in the front office.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have, put that forward because it felt like an engine that wasn't going to shut down at any point. It felt like it was going
Yeah.
to be ongoing, and certainly the Ravens feel that way after an 8-9 season too. That once that settles in, that you don't make the playoffs for a year or two or three, it becomes easier to say, oh well, the Texans are this year's flavor. But you got three chances. We only have two around here. If the Orioles go in the tank, we got to sit here and wait till September for Lamar to do something. Matt Thomas, is there anything you want to say about the Rockets in the NBA, just in general about playoff time? Because it's a hard championship to win, the NBA championship.
It is hard. The West is filthy. The West has been better for about 25 or 30 years. Unfortunately, Nestor, your local NBA team is horrendous and has been that way forever. So I'm sure your great audience just tunes out to basketball because you've had nothing really to rally about. Um, Kevin Durant has been magnificent. He's been hurt in this playoff series. We won a game last night without him. Play game number 5 of the series in Los Angeles on Wednesday. I'll be leaving tomorrow for that. We should have won game number 3, and we had a 6-point lead with 25 seconds left and couldn't hold on to that. It's been frustrating. And, there was the burner account stuff, and there's what is Kevin Durant a leader on the floor? Is he a leader by scoring? I've had nothing but a great relationship with him. Not that I have much of one, but he's been very pleasant. I love the scoring that he brings. He wakes up Nestor scoring 25 points a game. He just does. Alperen Şengün is a solid number 2. Amen Thompson's number 3. And the frustrating thing about it all is you're taking on a Laker team that Luka's not playing the series for sure. Austin Reeves, the second leading scorer, may play in the game 5 on Wednesday, but he hasn't played in the first 4. And you let guys like Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart beat you up, and that's been very aggravating for Rocket fans here in Houston.
Well, 'tis the season for NBA playoff drama and NHL drama. Hey, we got our own thing here with the Preakness Derby this week. Preakness got moved down to Laurel, only 5,000 people going. So we've got local drama here above and beyond the baseball team, but it's always great to spend time with you and visit. I miss my trips down to Houston, eating my face off with my cousin down there and getting some good Tex-Mex, but I will find an excuse. Is World Cup playing Houston? Did you
They
guys,
are.
you guys
I know
got some
nothing
games,
about
right?
it, but I know they're being here. They're here.
Yeah, well, I
So
wonder how it's going to transform some of these towns in this country. Because it's blink in 5 weeks, we're here. We're playing soccer games in Houston. So,
hotels cannot pop up fast enough, put it that way. That's what we're hearing. They have a new 17-story downtown hotel going up within this week. So it was built exclusively for the World Cup when it came to Houston.
I looked. Philly's got games, right, and they're $850 to see like Ivory Coast play Ecuador. So,
Who
no,
do you got in that game? Match, excuse me.
the one in the blue jerseys. I don't know. I'm making that up and I'm sneezing anyway. And I'm
All
not
right, last
sneezing at the
question for
World
you. I'm
Cup.
throwing
I love
something
the
at you.
World Cup. I just politically what this has become, it's a circus at this point, really.
All right, I'm gonna throw something at you to wrap things up.
Yes.
If I was to listen to your shows
Hmm.
and talk to your fans, how they feel about all that money that Lamar Jackson's paying, because there's a lot of people wigging out here about C.J. Stroud. His
I
time is coming next year.
It's fascinating. Well, I mean, one of them's a three-time MVP, right? Like, I mean, Lamar got sort of robbed, not robbed. I mean, Josh Allen played well, but Lamar could have
Right.
been a three-time. He is a two-time MVP, could have been a three-time MVP. I think there's a different level of productivity as well as you mentioned the Rockets taking an early nap in the playoffs. Same thing with the Texans. This Lamar group, the whole group, Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, Roquan Smith, just put them all together. They have not, Zay Flowers, they've not won these kinds of games in January. And until that happens with Lamar, it doesn't feel like bad money. It just feels like he's going to be less utilized as a running quarterback. He's now 29. I mean, he's not a kid anymore. They brought Derrick Henry in. They're trying to fortify the O-line. They don't want to see him running in the linebackers 12, 14 times a game the way Harbaugh was doing 5 years ago. And all that being said, he's got to be successful in the passing game, and they have to figure this out. They have a 29-year-old offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle, so they've made massive changes here after 18 years of Camp Harbaugh. I'm fascinated to see the changes because we haven't seen that here generationally, and see what kind of players are going to put on the field with Jesse Minter. So there's a lot of change here, and I think that makes it, from the sports media perspective, a lot of questions, and we won't get answers till they hit the field September 13th, you know?
Yeah, the reality is this. Your argument about Lamar getting to the Super Sunday is the same argument they're having in Buffalo. to a lesser extent with in Cincinnati right now because they've already gone once. But you're about to put $60 million in the piggy bank of CJ Stroud next season if he has any kind of decent season. So I think the pressure will be on there. And that's why, and I'm sure you agree with me on this, if you can strike it rich while you get good by a rookie quarterback like what Joe Burrow was in Cincinnati, you are blessed. But once you start putting that big money, think about this. Daniil Hunter's making crazy money. Will Anderson's making crazy money. Nico Collins, very good receiving money, although he's probably due for another raise. And then you're going to be in the CJ Stroud $60 million club. That's intense pressure for 4 or 5 guys, basically taking up 40% of your payroll.
Oh, there's no question about it. And we saw that when Flacco, after the Ravens won,
Right.
Flacco had a salary cap issue, and they're like, why don't we have wide receivers? Well, if you miss in the draft, and that's what's made the draft this weekend so pivotal for every team to find 3 or 4 players that are going to get on the field, because the Ravens have bigger needs than they've had when they were a 12, 13,
Yeah.
14 win outfit. And as the quarterback ages, next year Lamar's going to be a $75 million cap number. And
Wow.
nobody's really sure that there's kumbaya. But I tell you this, you don't want to live life without him. You don't want to play with, Snoop Huntley. You don't want to play with the backup. So,
Like if Malik Willis is getting crazy money, I mean, my gosh, what has he done except maybe have a game and a half that you'd put on a resume? I am stunned at the quarterback discrepancy. That's why I think at the end of the day, I gotta go on this. I think we're gonna get a quarterback salary cap. I really do. You're just seeing these teams go nutso with overpaying of quarterbacks. Now Malik isn't in that category, but there's gonna be 10 or 15 teams. I mean, how much has Dak Prescott's contract hampered the Dallas Cowboys' attempt to fill the defense? It just has.
well, it made their best player a Packer for sure.
That's right.
Matt Thomas is here. He covers sports in the Houston area better than anybody. Make sure you're following him out there at 790 as well, and all things Rockets, Red Glare. And you mentioned the basketball team in Washington around here. I think you're the only one that's mentioned it a long time, other than my buddy Dave Johnson, whom I love.
Love
But
Dave, yes.
yeah, but it is it's slim pickings for the Leonsis family right now in the nation's capital. Matt, thanks for the time as always. Great to visit with you.
All right, call anytime, my friend.
All right, man. Get down the original Memphis for me. Get that guacamole
I'll
dip
do
and a
it.
perfect margarita. I am Nestor. Speaking of perfect, I think it's gonna be perfect at Pizza John's on Friday. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery, GBMC, and Farnan and Dermer. Luke's got you in the loop for any breaking news. The Orioles ups and downs, trying to get Jackson Holiday back, some other guys. All that brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.